and welcome to First Generation American Drinks and Dialogue. I'm here today with Amalia Bir, the founder of Make It Social. Cheers, Amalia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here today.
So I'm so excited that we got to reunite after many years.
Yes.
So we go way back to the days of Pinocchios, also known as Pinocchios, the best pizzeria in the burbs out here. So we worked in Glenview together.
Yeah.
I was a waitress and bartender at the restaurant during college, and you weren't old enough to work behind the bar yet. You worked behind the counter for carry-out and everything, and kind of helped manage the restaurant with all the administrative stuff. So we were joking on the phone the other day that that's really what started our careers.
Exactly.
You know, that just launched us to where we are today.
Taught us everything we needed to know.
Customer service and everything, right?
Exactly.
So I was so happy to hear. You reached out to me on Facebook, actually. We reconnected recently because you were looking for some networking and additional marketing for your new business, Make It Social. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On starting your own business. That's so exciting. I always love to hear first generation Americans just, embodying that American dream that their parents sought when they came to this country, and just kind of like making the most of that experience. So what I'm curious about, tell me where your parents came from. Were you born here? If not, how old were you when you came here? What's your story?
Well, my parents are both Romanian, so I'm Romanian, Romanian American, I suppose. And they were both born and raised in Romania. They got married in Romania and had my older brother there. However, during that time, Romania was communist, so they really had the dream of leaving the communist country and coming to the U.S. where you had all your rights and everything along those lines. So, common to that time, my dad ran away from the country. He actually ran away twice. The first time, he ran away with a group of people. They got caught and they got sent back home, which is very fortunate because oftentimes you'll be imprisoned or anything along those lines. And the second time, he actually just packed up his bags, got on his bicycle, and rode from Romania to Serbia.
On his bicycle?
On his bicycle. Just him alone.
Incredible.
Exactly. So he got to Serbia, and at that point, his options were to go to Australia. So he got on the first flight and went to Sydney and started a life there. Yes. It's just so crazy to think he didn't speak the language, didn't know anything. I mean,
so was Sydney like the first available flight out of Serbia at that moment, or how did he choose Australia? Was he like, I love koalas, I'll just go there?
Well, he wanted to go to a democratic country, and I believe that once he got to Serbia, he just wasn't able to get a flight to the U.S. And it was either go back home to Romania or go to Australia. And at that point, he thought, well, I came this far, might as well continue going. Once he got there, he became a permanent resident. My mom and my older brother, he was a baby at the time, were able to go. And my parents actually lived in Australia for quite a few years, where I was born. So they lived in Australia for about 3 years, and then during that time, communism fell in Romania, and my grandparents, along with my uncle, my mom's parents, they moved to the U.S. And my mom went to visit them with me and my brother and loved it, loved Chicago, and so we ended up just moving here. So
how old were you and first of all, like a Romanian girl that was born in Sydney, Australia, that moved to Chicago. When you told me that on the phone the other day, I mean, we knew each other for years, almost a decade now, but I had no idea that was your story, and to me that was pretty cool. I was excited to have that part of the story shared on the show today. How old were you when you left Australia?
I was 7 months. That's why I don't know enough about the culture, and I don't really speak that Australian accent. Yes, that would have been so neat.
You could fake it.
I'm really not good at accents. I do have a slight accent because Romanian was my first language. So I learned English second, and oftentimes I'll mispronounce odd words, and you'll hear my Romanian accent coming through, which is odd since I wasn't born there.
But I experienced the same thing completely. Because growing up in Chicago, we have our certain dialect, and then growing up with Polish as a first language too. And sometimes people will tell me, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? And I clearly look European.
Yeah.
So it's very blatant, and I think we kind of blend when we're in Chicago because we're such a melting pot. But if I visit somewhere else, people always kind of pick up that ethnic look. Exactly. And then they hear the accent, which is exciting because then you could talk about your culture and really celebrate who you are.
It came to me as a surprise the first time I heard I had an accent. I mean, it was no big deal, but at the same time, I thought, my goodness, I moved here when I was 7 months, And then I thought about it, and I thought, wow, well, I didn't learn English until I was like 4 or 5, and my first words were in Romanian, and it was me talking to my mother and me talking to my grandparents and my brother and my dad, and everyone speaks Romanian.
You're just surrounded by that culture all the time. So did you go to Romanian school, or in your early years, how were you submerged in that culture?
We don't have a Romanian school that I went to. I do believe that there was a Romanian school. I never attended. But I did grow up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, and we had a Romanian church. So that was actually a big reason why my parents decided to move here, is they had so many other Romanians that lived here. Australia, there wasn't really a large Romanian community, but in Chicago, we had family and we had friends from Romania who moved here and who went to church together. So growing up, I was very involved in church. Our family friends were all Romanian. Growing up, my best friends were Romanian. I grew up with essentially 4 main families, including mine. And so it was us 4. We went every single Sunday. We went to the park together over the spring and fall. In the summer, we went to the beach together. We went on vacations together. Every Saturday night, the families would get together.
One big family.
One big, big family. Birthdays, holidays, everything was spent together. And everyone spoke Romanian, and everyone shared the same religion, and everyone ate the same food. So there was really no new culture that I was learning about. I was really involved in the Romanian culture. And it was nice. It's neat because if I didn't have that, I probably couldn't speak Romanian as well as I do. Not that I speak great, but, it definitely helped me retain the culture.
So one thing that really stuck out to me was when you were talking about communism in Romania, and that's why your parents left. And part of the purpose of First Generation American Project is to really connect with other First Generation Americans from different cultures and highlight all those neat ways where even though we're different culturally, the language is different in Romania, your prime religion in the country, general, traditions, your culture is different, but we have that common denominator that we are Americans as well, and we grew up with this hybrid culture.
Yeah.
And so even though we're different, there's so many common factors that we have. So you were talking about your parents leaving the country because of communism, and something that immediately came to mind for me was when my mom would tell me about how they first came here. My mom was about 23 when she came to the States, and same thing. My grandfather came here, my grandmother came here, and it was just this like trickling of family and neighbors and everything that just started to come out here. And it was because of that communism going on in the country at the time. And I specifically remember my mom just sharing this. I mean, she had tears in her eyes when she told me.
Yeah.
The first time that she went to Jewel, which Jewel is the local grocery store in Chicago, she literally had like this pain in her stomach. She just got sick to her stomach because she walks in and it's commerce.
Yeah.
There's items on the shelves, there's food to buy, there's variety. Like people, you have money in Poland, my grandparents worked, the family worked, my mom had an accountant position at the local bank. People had money, but you couldn't even buy anything because of that communist control. There was just nothing on the shelves. And so she really just kind of felt like sick to her stomach thinking, oh my God, here I am. The majority of my family is still in Poland. And, it's what I like about this project too is really kind of sharing these stories, not only our experiences of what it's like growing up FGA, but what are our roots? Where did our family come from? And you mentioned that your uncle had a similar experience as well.
Yes. Well, my uncle actually moved to the U.S. when he was 17, so he was relatively young. And he told me this story about how there was a train station near the village he grew up in, and from when he was a small child till right before he left, he said the amount of options of things to buy, food, drinks, everything along those lines dwindled. He said when he was a young child, he was able to go to the little stores around the train station. He could buy all sorts of candy, you could buy juices, you could buy different coffees, everything along those lines. It was a normal life. Exactly. And as the years progressed, the options just started narrowing down until there was one kind of candy and you could buy one bottle of water and that was it. I mean, and he was saying it just went from living a life where there was some oppression, but at the same time you still had options, to the point where you couldn't buy anything that you wanted. And now you're coming to the land of plentiful, where everything you could possibly want is at Jewel.
Absolutely. And I was telling my dad that story last night over dinner, and he was just kind of shaking his head thinking, yep, exactly. And he said Romania had it even worse than Poland did with communism at that time. And it really gives us a sense of appreciation for their journey to this country, and we understand why they're here, and I think that kind of motivates us, you know, and it keeps the family together. It really gives you an appreciation for what your parents did, what they sacrificed. Your father getting on a bicycle, leaving the country for the family, you know, what a dangerous mission, first of all, because he's been caught once. What if he gets caught again?
Exactly.
What can happen? But, you know, it's worth the risk because it's for the future of the family. So, and you mentioned that your grandparents came here first, so did they live near you? How was that?
Well, they moved here first. We came a few months later, and we actually lived together when we first moved here. Then we just bounced around apartment to apartment, and eventually my parents bought an apartment building where we lived on the 3rd floor and my grandparents lived on the 2nd floor. And we all lived in the same building. Growing up, my grandma used to cook all the time. She stayed home. She'd make food. She would help take care of my brother and I. She would walk us to school and pick us up. So we were always very close-knit. And because she stayed home and she never actually worked in the United States, she never really learned the language, which was helpful for me to be able to speak Romanian, because every single day I had to speak Romanian, at least to my grandmother, and converse with her. So eventually we moved into a house, and my grandparents moved in the house with us for a couple years, and then they bought a house in Indiana where they have a little bit of land and they have a garden and they've got chickens, and
how great.
It's really neat. I mean,
now, did they have a farm when they lived in Romania?
They had a farm. They lived in a rural town. So the way that the farms were set up in Romania is you had one main road and a lot of houses next to each other, but the backyards just were very long. So my grandparents had the usual fruits and vegetables and chickens, but they specialized in flowers.
Oh.
So they would grow roses every year and they would sell them in the market. And
that's pretty
what
beautiful.
They did. Yeah.
So is a rose actually pretty special to you, more than just like a Valentine's Day symbol? It's a symbol of your family
it's
and your
neat
roots.
Because they all know how to grow roses. And my mom has a rose bush in her yard, and my grandfather will go there and be like, "Oh, here's what you need to do."
Just tends to the rose bush.
Exactly.
Well, and it's so interesting to hear your grandparents always kind of sticking with you, proximity wise, and how your grandmother raised you, your grandfather raised you, because we had the same exact experience. We had a 3-flat in Chicago. After apartment hopping a little bit, my father bought his property, and grandparents lived in one unit, we lived in a unit, and then someone else rented out another one. So it's neat that we relate on that sense as well. And even now, my grandmother lives a block away with my aunt, who takes care of her. And same thing, babcia raised me, and she taught me how to pray, and she never spoke English, so it's always speaking Polish with her. So it's beautiful to have that bond, and actually to be able to converse with your babcia,
Yes.
It's like, she's my best friend. And I could not imagine not being able to, I work in IT, and I'll call her, and I tell her about, oh, Babcha, I have this new client, and we're doing this project, and she's never used a computer. She'll see stuff that I show her on Facebook or something, but she's like, oh yeah, that's great, and she just gets it, and you're talking the same language, and then you just have that bond together, and that's beautiful that, you know, you still have your language as well.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, my grandparents have always been there, and they're great, and every time I tell them about Make It Social, they're really excited for me, and it's Facebook advertising, so they're not exactly up to date as to what I'm doing, but they're so proud of me, and they'll ask me all the time, how's work? How's everything going? So it's so nice to have a close family, to have other relatives that you could just talk to freely. It's a wonderful feeling.
And we have some questions here. We just got a delivery from a guest, actually. So, do you travel to Romania, and what's your favorite place to visit?
I have actually never been to Romania. I'm sorry to disappoint. A lot of my family is here. So my mother's parents are here, my uncle. I've got a whole lot of cousins here, and we're dispersed. I have cousins in Chicago, I have cousins in Atlanta, and I also have cousins throughout Europe. So while it's a plan to go back to Romania and visit my family, it's also something of a Euro trip that we would have to do, just because I have family in Romania and I have a lot of family in Spain, and so I'd want to visit everyone at the same time, and it's just something that's in the works, but at the moment I haven't had the opportunity to go back.
Well, and it's great that you still keep in touch with everyone, and you have that, you know, neat place where you can actually hop around and visit all your family.
Exactly.
What about your mom? Has your mom been back, or your dad?
My dad has been back. My dad's mother actually still lives in Romania, so he's gone back to visit her, and she's a little older, so he's gone back to help her around with the house and things along those lines.
Okay, good. Well, in the future, if you ever do end up going to Spain,
let
me know.
Take you with.
I've never been there. I've never been to, you know, and we could take like FGA on tour.
Exactly.
And just interview people and do the Google Hangout, you know. I think we can make it happen. That's great. So another question that we have here is, what's your favorite Romanian dish? And I'm glad that the person on our chat here, if anyone's watching live right now, you could actually hop on rtvchicago.com, tune in with us, and join the chat and ask us questions. So what's your favorite dish? Because I know we talked about this.
Well, I've got two. My absolute favorite is stuffed peppers. My mom makes excellent stuffed peppers, but they're stuffed with rice and meat. And it's very similar to our cabbage rolls, which I know you said you have cabbage rolls as well.
Gołąbki.
It's
love
sarmale for us.
How do you say it in Romanian?
Sarmale.
Sarmale. Well, no, now I'm making it sound like it's Italian.
Yeah, a little bit. But.
We had Gino Bartucci in studio last week, and we were talking about food, and so we got the Italian 101 of talking with your hands. Yes, and we learned that the three staples of life are meat, cheese, and pasta, which is carne, formaggio, and pasta.
I agree. I think.
And it's a very similar European culinary palette, you know. Okay, so on that note, can you teach us some Romanian? There's one that I remember from Pinocchio's when we used to work together. Ooh. And that goes to Drinks and Dialogue, and that's noroc.
Noroc, yes.
I learned cheers.
Exactly.
All right, so cheers. What else can we learn?
I guess if you want to say good day, that's a great way to greet people. You would say bună.
Bună.
That's good. And then ziua.
Ziua.
Day. So,
Bună ziua.
Exactly. So if you walk into a room full of Romanians and you say that, everyone's going to be like, oh my goodness.
And if you walk into like a bar or restaurant, you say, bună ziua, noroc.
Yes.
Just tie it all in together.
All of a sudden, you'll be included in the Romanian community. They'll give you cabbage rolls and stuffed peppers. And
Wonderful. So, Amalia, tell us about Make It Social. How did you get started?
Well, during college, I actually got an internship at an entertainment company. And I was working there, and during my internship, I was running some Facebook ads for my boss. And after I graduated college, I was looking for work, and he gave me the idea and said, listen, I really love what you did with the Facebook ads. In the meantime, he actually got transferred to another team within our company, so he wasn't my boss anymore. and he said, I loved what you did, and I would love to continue working with you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider starting up a company? And I was like, I slept on it, and I thought, yeah, this could be neat. And
Very
honestly,
cool.
it was just a side job. It was something that I thought, okay, I could do this on the side. If I have a client here or there, it shouldn't be a problem. But then a couple months later, the team I actually worked for at the entertainment company needed a new person to run their Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
So I threw my name in the running, and
By the way.
so they knew me, and I was familiar with their properties, and so they said, you know what, why don't you help us run our Facebook ads?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just such a huge deal for me. It was unexpected, and I was very excited about it, and I started doing it, and as I was working more and more, I thought, wow, I really enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy looking into it. I enjoy seeing how the ads work, which ones are successful, and different options in terms of targeting and different things you could do with the ads. And I just enjoyed it so much that I thought I would really love to pursue this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it kind of happened.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm an avid Facebook user. I'm still trying to get on the Twitter train. But actually, First Generation American Project, I bought the domain name, and, I set up my blog, my WordPress site, kind of became this template. I didn't know exactly which direction I was going to go with the whole project, but I created the First Generation American Facebook page, and it's just been such a successful vehicle of connecting FGAs and just getting our events out there. We reconnected through Facebook, so everyone, it's 2013. We all know how effective Facebook is. But I've actually never used the ads. So how does that work? But when First Generation American Project nonprofit gets set up, naturally, I already promised you, I'm going to be your client for sure. So walk me through how this works.
Well, first off, one of the things I like to tell people is that everybody's different. So there's no one formula for every single business. But essentially, we would sit down, we would work together, and we would try to establish what message you're sending and who you're sending it to. And then we would figure out what images you would like to use, what ad copy you want to use, your target audience, and there's just so many options. So this is something where we can mix and match. We could run some ads that target women, some ads that target men, some that target this and that. There's broad interest, precise interest, everything along those lines. And then I would create all of these ads, run them for you on Facebook, and from there we could look at the results, see which ones are successful, see which ones aren't as successful, and continue building from there until you have just a lot of very successful ads that drive many people to your Facebook page, drive people to your website. It's a great tool to expand your brand, to grow your business, and to generate awareness of what you're doing, because people are on Facebook every day.
Right.
They're on Facebook.
That's, for the most part, if I'm Googling something or I'm looking up a company of some sort, I will more than likely go on your Facebook page, like you right away, just start seeing your newsfeed. So I agree. I think it's a very effective tool. Yeah. So how much does it cost?
It's actually very cost effective. Most online advertising is, and because you're in a big city like Chicago, it costs less since there are so many people to reach out to. Once you're in a smaller town, there's a smaller pool of target audience, and it ends up costing a bit more because you're competing with other advertisers.
I understand.
In Chicago, you can get, if you're running your ads and you're doing a pay per click, it's give or take $1 per click.
Okay.
And that generates thousands of impressions. So even if someone's not clicking on your ad, they're seeing it, and now they're thinking, I wonder what First Generation American Project is. And even if they don't click on it, maybe they open a Google tab and Google it. So I've done that plenty of times.
That's very true. So if I'm clicking on this, is it going to take the user to, or if a user is clicking on my ad, is that going to take them to my Facebook page or to my website, or is that something that you determine what the best fit is?
Yes, we would determine together. You can link it to either, and there's benefits to both. One, obviously you want to drive people to your website to read your articles and to read about what you're doing. The second one, if you drive them to your Facebook page, they have the opportunity to like your page, and from there, anytime you post anything on your Facebook page, it's automatically on your newsfeed.
That's
so now
great.
you have a way bigger audience, and it's just so beneficial to almost any business that wants to communicate with its consumers.
Well, and I'm in web development. That's what my company does.
Yeah.
It's all information services. So we do the full spectrum of IT services, but my job specifically is web development. So it's actually pretty neat to know that as I'm helping clients develop their websites, they always need that support after the fact, so you would be a great referral as well
I would love that.
make sure that they're keeping up with their content, because we know the name of the game is content and connecting with people and really building that online community.
Yes. I mean, I've seen so many images online where bigger companies communicate with their customers via Facebook, via Twitter, where someone will write on, I don't know, Taco Bell's Facebook page, and they'll say, hey, I loved your tacos, and Taco Bell can say, thanks, I appreciate it.
Here's a coupon.
Exactly, and all of a sudden you're able to, it's no longer a company and a person, it's now you guys can communicate, and there's no middleman. It's Facebook just brings everyone together. It's pretty neat.
Great. Well, I'm going to pull up your website here.
Oh,
we have our computer hooked up to our machine. So you are at makeitsocialads.com.
Yep.
Very good. And I see that you've got your Facebook feed on here as well. So this pretty much just walks everyone through of what they need to know to get started. You've got a great example here of what the advertising looks like on Facebook, some frequently asked questions. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you one of these. What are my targeting options?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you have quite a few. And that's, again, where the conversation is important. You have targeting options in terms of gender, you have age, you have broad versus precise interests. What I mean by that is you can either target people who like cars, or you could target people who like Ford. And so you have a lot of options in terms of how specific you're going to get with your audience. You can target if someone's birthday is coming in a week. So if you want to do something special for someone's birthday, or if they recently moved to an area, you could target them. Obviously there's location, so it could be Chicago and it could be a 30-mile radius or something along those lines. So it's very neat because you can really narrow it down to exactly what you want and who you want to reach out to. If you are running ads for your Facebook page, you can also put it so that you're not targeting people who already like your Facebook page, because they're already getting all your content. So now you're targeting new people and driving new users to your Facebook page. It's very neat, but again, it's very based on who you want to reach out to.
So, and I love that it's so flexible in that sense.
Yes.
And I see that you've got your blog, which is great because as an account executive for web development, I know how important blog content is. And we've got your contact here, so everyone could just fill out this contact form or just email you directly at makeitsocialads@gmail.com. Very good. And then we've got your Facebook page here, so anyone that's out there, let's show Amalia some love on her Facebook page. You can find her at facebook.com/makeitsocialadvertisingco, or just type in Make It Social.
Yes.
And you'll find her right there. You're also featured on our First Generation American page as well, as we are promoting this. And for anyone that wants to connect with Amalia on an analog mode as well, something that we're excited to do after each of these interviews, we're actually partnered with Chicago newspaper. So this is an article from our interview with Gino Bartucci from last week, and it's pretty much just a recap of our conversation here in studio, and then we do talk about the business as well. So if you want to learn more about Make It Social and sit down with your coffee, you're welcome to check out Chicago Devia. They're also launching their new website soon. They have their Facebook page, so they've got a great opportunity for you to read the entire article. And then we also posted, I'll pull up our WordPress blog here for the First Generation American page. So every week after we recap our interviews here, you can find us at firstgenerationamericanproject.wordpress.com, and we just cover all of our different interviews. We post a video straight from this interview. It'll be up there this weekend as well. And you can connect with either First Generation American Project or great First Generation American guests like Amalia Bir. And also, just to share with everyone, our next upcoming event that we have is the First Generation American Project Drinks and Dialogue. It's a live meetup that we do at the end of every month. You could join it on the Facebook page, of course, and then if you go to the WordPress site, just click on events. And we've got all of the information here. So the next one we have is at Pint Chicago. That's in Bucktown, located at Milwaukee and North Avenue, and it's at 1547 North Milwaukee Avenue. And I'll just pull up this picture over here. I mean, they have such a great venue space. You've got a beautiful fireplace and this cool bookshelf on the wall, and it's a nice intimate environment. So I can't wait to see you there and introduce you to all of our guests and teach everyone more about your business. But what we're doing at this event, we're going to have free appetizers, there's drink specials, and exactly what we're doing here today, but in a group setting. We go around the room and then everyone breaks up into their small groups, and it's free to attend. So definitely reach out to your Romanian American friends and have them join us on next Wednesday, May 29th. So it's after Memorial Day weekend, or I'm sorry, the following Wednesday. So
yes.
May 29th.
2 weeks.
The very last Wednesday of the month. We'll be excited to see you there. So anyone that wants to connect with Amalia live in person, please join us. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy that we got to reconnect and just learn about each other's backgrounds and make it social in action. So thank you so much for sharing your story and telling us about your business today.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It was so great reconnecting as well.
So for anyone that wants to join us in studio, you can always let us know through the Facebook page, through the WordPress site. Just Google First Generation American, and we're finally on page 1. It's exciting. It's been a lot of organic content that we've been generating for the last year and a half. We'll be here live in studio on Saturday, June 1st. This is live, so we have bloopers. So June 1st, live in studio on Saturday at noon. And anyone that wants to join us, please connect. We'd love to hear your story. If you can't make it into the studio here at RTV Chicago in Niles, you can always join us through Google Hangout. We have the ability to connect with you live through the Hangout and it's essentially like a Skype, but it's through Google. So please let us know if you'd like to connect. And for more about First Generation American Project, just go to First Generation American on Facebook. And we look forward to drinking and dialoguing with you in the near future. Cheers. Nadok.
Nadok.